Spider-Man is going to die in his next movie, and it's going to be the symbiote that brings him back. That's already Spider-Man, A New Day. And today we're breaking down every piece of it. Welcome to Avengers Protocol, the channel where the MCU gets the deep analysis it actually deserves. If you're new here, subscribe right now and hit that bell, because this kind of content simply doesn't exist anywhere else. And if you're already part of this community, you already know what to do. Drop a like on this video, it helps us more than you realize. Since the very beginning of production on Spider-Man, A New Day, theories started circulating online that Spider-Man, Peter Parker, would die in this film. And what makes it genuinely compelling is that those theories kept gaining momentum with every new detail that surfaced about the movie. Worth noting, this film takes place 4 years after Spider-Man, No Way Home, which places it in the year 2028 on the MCU timeline. And that premise of putting Peter through a full physical transformation in a state of complete social isolation lines up directly with some of the most mature chapters of the character's history in the comics, including stories that lead directly to his death. To really understand what's happening here, we have to go to the source material. Take, for example, the arc known as The Other, Evolve or Die. It begins with Peter Parker blacking out, having prophetic dreams, and experiencing episodes where his powers start failing, until it reaches a breaking point where, to protect Aunt May, he strangles a villain who turns out to be a robot. That situation shakes Peter deeply, and he goes looking for help from the greatest minds he knows, Reed Richards, Tony Stark, and even Bruce Banner. But everyone tells him the same thing: there's no fix. Peter Parker is dying. There's a degenerative illness consuming him as a result of prolonged exposure to the radiation from the radioactive spider that bit him and gave him his powers in the first place. That moment of extreme vulnerability draws the villain Morlun, an enormously important figure in Spider-Verse lore, because he belongs to a family of multiversal vampires that travels across different universes hunting spider avatars, people with arachnid-based powers who represent a spider totem in their universe. Peter Parker is one of those people. And exploiting that weakness, Morlun attacks Spider-Man with a brutality unlike anything seen before. Peter takes the most devastating beating of his life. He even loses an eye. He's left practically dead. The Avengers take Peter to Avengers Tower to recover and keep his secret identity intact. And he actually dies. But here's where it turns: Peter's body becomes an empty shell. Everything that was inside simply vanishes, like a snake shedding its skin. And the essence of Peter Parker, everything that made him who he was, ends up inside a cocoon beneath the Brooklyn Bridge. Inside that cocoon, Peter experiences something metaphysical. He revisits people from his past and encounters a massive entity, the Great Weaver, the spider entity that connects every Spider-Man across the multiverse. And it tells him that his human half has died. That he could return, but only if he fully embraces his spider totality. In other words, he would come back as a monster. Peter chooses to return with his human half intact. But things don't go cleanly, because the body he left behind, the shell sitting in Avengers Tower, was possessed by another entity, a colony of carrion spiders, which becomes the story's central villain and is eventually defeated. After all of that, Peter still had visions of himself as a spider monster. Without his human side, he developed organic webbing and nocturnal spider vision. It was a story that also expanded the mythology of the character entirely, transforming his origin from something purely scientific into something mystical, introducing the idea of spider totems across the multiverse, and the concept that the radioactive spider that bit him actually chose him. Just watching the first trailer for Spider-Man, A New Day, you can already spot the parallels. The cocoon is right there in the trailer. Peter developing organic webs is right there too. And there are very old rumors suggesting Peter would undergo a mutation in this film, at some point becoming something of a human-spider hybrid. But obviously there's a lot more to unpack here. Before we go further, if you're enjoying this breakdown, I need to ask you something right now: hit that like button. It genuinely fuels this channel. And if you're new here, subscribe and follow Avengers Protocol so you never miss an analysis like this one. Every subscription, every like, every comment, that's what allows us to keep producing content at this level. Ready? Let's keep going. Possibly the most iconic Spider-Man story involving his supposed death is Kraven's Last Hunt. The story follows Kraven determined to prove his absolute superiority over Spider-Man, but through a plan that goes far beyond simply killing him. Important context: at this point in the comics, Peter was wearing the black symbiote suit, before Venom ever appeared, before Peter realized what that suit actually was. What Kraven does is shoot Peter Parker with an incredibly powerful sedative, which causes Peter to collapse and be declared dead. He's buried. And he remains in that state for weeks. But during those weeks, Kraven starts wearing a replica of Spider-Man's black suit, not the actual symbiote suit, but a copy, and patrols the city impersonating Peter Parker, hunting and brutalizing criminals ferociously. Until Peter finally wakes from his sedation and simply rises from the grave. He goes after Kraven, but Kraven doesn't fight back, because he believes his purpose has already been fulfilled. This story operates on a completely different level. Spider-Man dies, in quotes, because he was really just unconscious. There's no monstrous transformation here, it's far more psychological horror. And it also introduces the idea of Peter being replaced by a villain, which is something that came up again in the story of the Superior Spider-Man. In that arc, while on his deathbed, Dr. Octopus, Otto Octavius, developed a device capable of swapping consciousnesses between bodies. When Peter Parker went to confront him, it was Peter who ended up dying in Octavius' body, while Otto survived in Peter's. From that came the Superior Spider-Man, essentially Dr. Octopus' mind operating in Spider-Man's body. And he proved he could be a better Spider-Man than Peter ever was. Being the genius he is, he engineered more advanced suits, controlled supervillains more effectively, and even became wealthy by building a company under the Parker name, the kind of thing Peter could never pull off. But this is the Marvel Universe, and Peter's soul lingered, haunting Otto until he eventually managed to reclaim his physical body. The most significant death of Peter Parker, though, happened in the Ultimate Universe. There, he died for real, and stayed dead for a long time. In that story, Peter was only 16 years old. He threw himself in front of a bullet to protect Captain America from the Punisher, and even while suffering internal bleeding, he found a way to make it back to his neighborhood to face a group of escaped villains tearing his community apart. He was a very young Peter Parker, with very little experience as Spider-Man. But he had one of the single most courageous moments in the character's entire history. He gave absolutely everything he had. Everything. And he dies in that battle. A devastating moment. Mary Jane was there. Aunt May was there. But he dies at peace, because he protected the people he loved. One of the panels from that issue is genuinely beautiful, Peter in the arms of Uncle Ben, with Uncle Ben telling him, "You did good, kid." That hits on a level that's hard to describe. It was that death that inspired the rise of Miles Morales as the new Spider-Man in the Ultimate Universe. And for a long time, Miles was the only Spider-Man in that universe because Peter Parker was simply gone. But years later, in the Miles Morales comics, it was revealed that Peter had survived. He simply woke up in a random morgue, older now, aged by however long he'd been gone. The scientific explanation in that story comes from the spider that bit Peter in the Ultimate Universe, which in that continuity was an Oscorp project. That spider had been exposed to a compound from an experiment attempting to recreate the super soldier serum, which gave Peter's biology an extraordinarily advanced regenerative capability, essentially making him immortal. Miles is completely shaken by Peter's return, and Peter is frustrated to find someone else wearing his mantle. But eventually the two of them find their footing, work together, and after Peter really gets to know Miles, he decides to leave the Spider-Man identity with him permanently, and goes off to live a quiet, ordinary life, away from it all, starting a family with Mary Jane. That death of Peter is entirely connected to the rise of Miles Morales. And it's interesting to note that Tom Holland, across multiple interviews, has said he'd like to eventually pass the torch, to have a successor someday. Which would also open the door for Miles Morales, or other Spider characters in the films. Though everything suggests that's not happening yet. It's a plan for somewhere down the road. Now, if you take everything we already know about A New Day and hold it up against all of these stories, the similarities are impossible to ignore. It really feels like Marvel is building an amalgamation, a smart fusion of multiple Peter Parker death arcs, to tell a completely original story within the MCU. A central element of the new film, confirmed by Tom Holland himself in an interview where he said it was actually his idea from the early conception of the movie, is Peter Parker's transformation. His spider puberty, let's call it. We see him deteriorating, blacking out, and eventually waking from a cocoon, which leads him to consult with Bruce Banner. All of this playing out under a narration about the life stages of a spider and an inevitable process of rebirth. That has everything to do with the other arc. But it doesn't stop there. A key presence in the film is the character played by actress Sydney Sweeney, and the strongest rumors say she'll be the Jean Grey of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Jean's psychic powers as a telepath could be critical, either amplifying what Peter is going through or helping manage it. It's not coincidental that some early rumors about her character said she'd be playing the Queen, a spider entity from the comics who, with a kiss, triggers a radical transformation in Peter, turning him into a genuine human spider capable of generating organic webbing. In that specific story, Peter doesn't die, he goes through the mutation. And it's not by accident that the catalyst for that transformation is a female character. So how exactly could Peter die in A New Day? Older alleged leaks, and even accounts from people who claim to have seen test screenings of the film, describe an epic final battle where Spider-Man has to face a savage version of the Hulk. Also present in that battle, the Punisher and Jean Grey. And there's another significant detail. This might be the Spider-Man film with the most Spider-Man villains ever presented in a single movie, which connects directly to that final battle in the Ultimate Universe comics, where Peter had to face multiple villains simultaneously, and that's exactly what destroyed him. So the way I see it, the Cocoon in the new film is more about the transformation than the death itself. The death comes later, at the end of the story, after the final battle, where he perhaps sacrifices himself. Because according to those alleged leaks, Spider-Man ends the film either declared dead or simply missing. And that's exactly where the symbiote comes in. In the post-credits scene of No Way Home, Eddie Brock, the Venom from Sony's films, returned to his universe of origin, but left behind a fragment of the Venom symbiote. And it's already been established that that symbiote recognizes Peter Parker, or at the very least, Spider-Man. So that small abandoned symbiote fragment, lost in the main Marvel movie universe, could go searching for Spider-Man and eventually find his grave, or wherever his body was left. The symbiote could then function as a regenerative agent, healing the character's lethal wounds in a way that parallels what happened with Peter Parker in the Ultimate Universe, who was genuinely dead but came back to life because of the restorative properties that originated from the spider that bit him. Except in the film's case, instead of the genetically modified spider, it would be the symbiote, that alien factor, that brings Peter back. And with that Peter returning to life in the black suit, Marvel could recreate that iconic image of Spider-Man rising from the grave, exactly the way it happened in Kraven's Last Hunt. This fits perfectly with the MCU's current timing. Why? Because it's already near certain that Tom Holland's Spider-Man won't appear in the next Avengers film, Doomsday. But he would show up in Avengers: Secret Wars. And in the comics, Secret Wars was precisely where Spider-Man first appeared wearing the black suit. The sequence of events would click into place perfectly. Peter dies in this film, is brought back by the symbiote, and spends the entirety of Secret Wars wearing that black suit. If that isn't what Marvel has planned, honestly, it would be a missed opportunity of historic proportions. But now I want to know what you think. Drop a comment down below, let's talk about it. And if you made it to the end, hit that like button right now, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and follow Avengers Protocol so you never miss a breakdown like this one. Every like, every subscription, every comment is what keeps this channel going and allows us to keep delivering this level of analysis for this entire community. More videos are right here on screen for you to watch next. Thank you for being here. As always, it means everything. This is Avengers Protocol, signing out.